Welcome to Mark My Words, a podcast that not only aims to inspire and teach the listener about entrepreneurship, it also aims to give my guests an opportunity to talk about their unique journey in entrepreneurship and life. So join me and my guests as we meet at the crossroads on Mark My Words. Today on Mark My Words, I have a very energetic and passionate guest from the land down under, where today we received, and I'll kind of like timestamp this episode since it'll be coming out in a few months, but today one of Australia's most famous people passed away, Olivia Newton-John. I want to get into that topic in just a second, but I'll introduce you to Mary Henderson, who is a personal branding and online business specialist. And if you haven't come across her work or her interviews, you're really in for a treat. She is a real expert, full of passion, full of knowledge, and I can't wait to not only talk to her about personal branding, but I also want to ask Mary Henderson, welcome first of all to Mark My Words, but I want to ask you a little bit about Olivia Newton-John, who I was a pretty big fan of and saw her, obviously in Grease. That's like one of my favorite movies, and just wanted to see what your feelings were on Olivia Newton-John today.
Well, Mark, thanks for having me, first of all. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, Olivia Newton-John is an icon here in Australia. She's somebody that everyone can relate to. This is what's so amazing about this woman. A heart of gold, extremely talented. Like you, I was obsessed with Grease. I probably watched that movie God knows how many times, and every young girl's dream was to be Sandy in those big high shoes. But, I was actually thinking about that this morning before this interview, and I thought, roller skating was such a big thing then. And she just made it even more uber cool. Like every kid wanted to have the black tights, that tight t-shirt, the roller skates, and it was like that, back in, the 70s. And I just loved her. I still love her. I think that her music will live on. I think she has a lot of people that love her. Whether you're famous or not, it doesn't matter, but she really is an icon. So a big loss to the world today. And also she fought for so long, her battle with cancer, and she really did fight it. She came face to face with it. And if anyone can teach us about resilience, I think that she's left a wonderful legacy for so many people to embrace, in every aspect of their life. So it is a loss, but also I think that she's left something for us to, as we're doing now, start a conversation with.
Absolutely. And I mean, very courageous, very talented, and just for Greece alone, her legacy will live on. And for me, when I went on to social media and saw that she had passed away, like, holy smokes, like I feel like I'm really starting to get old.
You're just getting started. Come on, your life's just getting started. Forget about old schmold. That's yesterday's news. Like, we've got to reinvent the meaning of old, right?
Exactly. And again, this is one of many reasons. I feel like I say this almost every episode, but that kind of energy, that's the kind of energy I need in my life. That's why You're here. That's why I do this. And I could talk about Olivia Newton-John for an hour, but instead we're going to talk about you, and we're going to talk about your career and your life. And I want to kind of get started because I love going on LinkedIn whenever a LinkedIn profile is provided for me. I love going and just seeing what somebody might have been passionate about, what they might have been thinking about. And it looks to me like you, even though kind of makes me chuckle, I see incomplete degree for psychology. So
Yes.
you didn't finish, but you were thinking about psychology. What made you decide to major in psychology?
I'm so glad you started there, Mark, because there's such a twist to that story. So my childhood dream was to become a full-time singer. Like, my voice is professionally trained from the age of 5. So I've had voice coaches from the age of 5 right up until about in my early 20s. But in my younger years and my teenage years, like, I was obsessed, with my voice. Like, it was the only thing that I could see as my future. And of course, getting to the age of 16, 17, when you graduate from high school and you're entering into the big wide world of university or college, my parents had different ideas. They were like, yeah, singing's not actually a career, that's like a hobby. And I'm like, no, it's actually a career. And all I ever wanted to do was to go to the College of Arts. That's it. There was no other thing in my life except the College of Arts. And my parents had different ideas for me. And my mum's like, I'm sorry. My parents are both migrants from Europe. And my mum was like, I'm sorry, we didn't migrate to this country for our daughter to become a singer. You need to become a doctor or a lawyer. Like, basically, that's going to secure your life. We both know that that's not the truth. And so I ended up going to university, and I was quite an astute student. I was quite academic. And so I started psychology. Oh my God, Mark, talk about a mismatch of just the whole. It's not that I didn't love psychology. It's just that I had no interest in pursuing a path of becoming a psychologist, because I had other ideas, and I knew at a very young age what my gifts and my natural gifts and my natural talents were. And I would utilize that as much as I can on a day-to-day basis. Now I'm stepping into this arena where it's completely foreign to me, where I'm not using my gifts and my talents at all. I've gone into a completely linear mindset. And could you imagine me, like, from dancing and singing and being like this artistic person to being rigid in this box, and just listening and consuming information. And I got into my second year of university, and I was like, I got to get out of here. Like, this is absolutely not where I want to be. And I did. And I tried to go back to finish my degree, but I never did. University and Mary were just completely not a match made in heaven. And I'm so glad that I made that decision. And I'm also so glad that I never went back to complete it.
And that's a lesson, really important lesson for anybody out there listening, to follow your heart and follow what your gut is telling you, because what you experience with your parents is a bit similar to what I experienced, because I really wanted to major in television production, and kind of, I think deep down inside, there was a desire to do what I'm doing today, or be in front of a camera or perform.
Yep.
And that's a whole other story, because I didn't necessarily believe that I would be accepted in that way, but I did want to like be a part of the entertainment industry somehow. And what better way than to learn the technical aspects of it?
Yes.
Certainly, I would say, I don't know if I want to say easier, but a more practical path than maybe other options. But even with that more practical path, I was not always encouraged, and I'm going to be very general because I'm not going to pick on one parent or the other here, but I was not encouraged, and I was more encouraged to, go for a business degree and do things that were, you know, their heart was in the right place, but just not the path that I wanted to follow. And I feel like I learned a lot of the same things you learned because I wound up majoring in television production and following that path
Wow,
anyway. So,
amazing.
yeah. So, I mean, you can learn a lot just from listening to your story and hopefully mine on follow your heart and follow your gut. Because believe me, you have an incomplete degree, quote unquote, but I have at least two or three incomplete majors that I tried because my heart just wasn't into it.
Absolutely. I hear you loud and clear, believe you me. And the thing is that, I have to make you laugh that I had some academic that reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, you shouldn't actually write incomplete degree on your LinkedIn profile. It just doesn't, I don't know, it's not professional or something like that. And I said, but that's the truth. It is incomplete. So why would I write something that's not the truth? And I just thought, this is the thing, you see, this is the difference in mindset, that if you're going to come from an academic mindset, you're always going to be limited by that box. You should and you should not. Whereas when you step into the entrepreneurial arena, there's no shoulds and there's no should nots. It is what it is in the moment, and we just have a more fluid way of seeing things. And that just made me laugh. And I was just like, yeah, whatever, next. I don't put energy into that sort of stuff. So anyway, just something to laugh about.
No, and I mean, I think I really appreciate your authenticity, and I know a lot of people toss around the word authenticity, authentic,
Yeah,
and I feel like I am a truly authentic person. So from one authentic person to another, I really appreciate that mindset. And I think that really got my attention that I was like, she's just like, look, this is who I am. This is the path that I've
totally.
taken.
Yep.
Incomplete degree. And there's
Yep.
something to be learned from the incomplete degree. And I know I learned a lot from trying to pursue something that I was not suited to do. And it taught me, look, you need to follow your path. Don't listen to what other people are telling you. Follow
Totally.
your path. So I think that's really great. So you went from that and went out into, and I'll use the quotation marks, the real world. And it looks like you tried doing a few different things. So I don't know. It kind of like skips the history here, but what exactly were you thinking? And even this, I didn't even notice this. It looks like you came to the States for a while. So tell me a little bit about your path and why you decided to go in the direction you went in.
Well, let's rewind back to year 2000. And that was when I stepped into the IT arena. IT back then, the tech industry was booming. And my career really took off in the tech industry in year 2000. That was my absolute turning point. And prior to that, leaving university, I dabbled in the media industry for quite a while, which I just hated every bit of it. It was absolutely not me at all. Even back then, it was full of propaganda. So it just wasn't me. I was not a match made in heaven, but I learned a lot of things, being young in that industry and just understanding there were aspects of it that I really did love. But realistically, my career really took off when I transitioned into the tech industry. I loved the tech industry because it was vivacious, it was full of change, it was dynamic, it was such high energy. It was a match made in heaven for somebody like me. So I really started my real career, I believe, in year 2000 when I stepped into that arena, in more of the middle management position. But it was in year 2000, Mark, where I actually came face to face with personal branding. That's where the journey started for me. I had this amazing opportunity. I was asked to solve a very complex problem. Nobody before me that was in that role could solve the problem. And in that moment, I thought to myself, if I solve this problem, and I will make it my mission to solve this problem, I'm going to position myself as a brand. I'm going to be known in this industry as the person that can solve these type of problems. I genuinely knew that I could create my own demand. I knew that I could do that if I could solve this problem. And I did. I solved the problem. I turned that business around from 8 million to 22 million in 18 months. And I was the star of the show. We had a lot of retrenchments in our company at that time as well. I was the number one person on the list to keep in the organization. It was just unbelievable. And then I also knew I started to attract a lot of attention from other vendors, like other major tech companies, wanting to start conversations with me. But I was headhunted by a multinational based out in California, and they reached out to me and said, we want to have a conversation with you. We're trying to build our profile and our brand presence in Asia Pacific, and we can see what you're doing with that company, and also we can see the gravitas, the pull that you have in the retail industry, just in people knowing you. So we really want to have a conversation with you. So I did have that conversation, and I just got the most amazing opportunity, Mark. Like, it really was that sliding door moment where I thought, this is gonna make me. And it was those two positions that brought me to where I am today. I built a business for that company from $4 million. They acquired a small business in Australia at $4 million. It was a complete startup. Nobody knew them. And in 4 years, I built that business from 4 million to 54 million. I had a fairly dynamic, large sales team. And I decided to do it my way. HR hated me with vengeance, because I would not actually conform to the box. And they couldn't handle not controlling my vision and the way that I wanted to pursue the business. And also the way I wanted to grow my people. So when I got my sales team, I made sure that we didn't follow job descriptions and job titles, because they were salespeople. They already knew what their job title was. They already knew what their job description was. I wanted to build brands, and I knew how to do that. I didn't realize at the time that I had a methodology. I just intuitively knew how to do it. So we went ahead as a team, as co-creators, and we built this amazing business together. And then in 2005, that led me into starting my own entrepreneurial journey. I felt that I was ready, but I wasn't ready. But I knew that when was I going to start my own business? And in that business that I was, the tech company in California, I spent 4 years in LA. I was back and forth, LA, Australia, New Zealand, like everywhere. And so when I started my own entrepreneurial journey, which was in 2005, I started a tech company. It was a software development company. We did web-based software development for the academic sector. I saw a massive gap in the academic sector. And of course, as you do, you just step into the unknown. And literally, it was the unknown. And then in 2012, I had my second child. And 3 hours after my son was born, reaching out to the side of my table to get to my purse to get a lip balm, my business card fell out on the bed. And I picked up that business card and I was like, oh my God, my whole life has been a series of labels. And also, this ties back to the very first question you asked me about my degree. In that moment, I also realized that I started this business. I had it for 7 years. I built it from 0 to 7 figures. I had an infrastructure. I had a big client list. Everything was going great, except I actually hated going to work every day. That was not my purpose. I built a business because, I had to declare the truth, come face to face with the fact that I really was still looking for that validation from my parents. And I wanted them to say, Mary, we are so proud of you, drum roll, even though you didn't finish your degree. That was the validation that I was looking for. And in that moment, I knew that I would resign from my own company, which I did 2 weeks later. And then thankfully, we merged my company with another design agency. January the 1st, 2012, I took a 12-month sabbatical. I had 3 amazing mentors, one of which was a professor in philosophy. And essentially, I was looking to find Mary. Who am I? What am I doing here? What is my purpose? Because I could not live a life as a lie for the rest of my life. I knew what I wanted to do in my teenage years. That was taken away from me. I went through my entire 20s confused and lost. And then I stepped into my 30s and I'm like, well, what do I do for the rest of my life? This is weird. I don't know what to do. And that was when my life just completely turned around, and these mentors really held a space for me to unfold that vision and that understanding, that truth of who I truly am. And then 3 years it took me, Marc, to really create the business that I'm in right now, like really create a system, support it with frameworks, really understand the problem I can solve, who is it that I can serve. And from 2015 till today, I've never looked back.
It's amazing how much I learn that I have in common with my guests, because some of what you're saying really reminds me of me, even though we obviously haven't gone through the same path. And I'm going to try to cover that here as I kind of backtrack a little bit. So, first of all, let me just ask, do you think that it was like the performer in you that kind of helped you to get your career rolling with the company you were with, and to kind of get you propelled into where you are now, which is entrepreneurship?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things, Marc. I actually had quite a traumatic childhood. It wasn't really that easy peasy, let's just, sing kumbaya type of a child. It was actually quite traumatic. So I learned how to look after myself. I learned a lot of resilience. I'm a very resilient person still to this day. I don't see that as a negative trait. I totally see that as a positive trait, because through that experience, which I didn't know then, but I know now, I actually learned how to create an identity, which was this, this persona of a rock star in my mind. And that rock star, the vision that I had for that version of me was all about self-expression. And that's what the voice gave me. It gave me the opportunity to self-express. And I think that's what it was. I gave myself freedom to be able to do that through singing. And I think that as I progressed in my career, I didn't have a problem of being on the stage. I didn't have a problem being in front of thousands or hundreds of people, because I had done it before. And so and it's not even that I was a performer. It really was the gift that I had been given from God. My voice was my gift, and my talent was singing. Now, what I learned in my adult years is that the voice is the gift that never goes, but it has to be expressed every day. I just had to figure out how I could redirect that gift through another channel. So coaching for me was the obvious next step, because even just doing these podcast interviews, I'm in my natural state of being, even just having this conversation with you. So I think that's very important to establish. We shouldn't let go of the gift, the talent, and how we express that gift. That can always change, but we've got to let go of what was, because what was has been and gone. We have to look at what we can do with that now. And I'm a massive advocate of that. And I've learned that through the years.
And you say a word that you talk about personal branding.
Yes.
I use the word resilience very
Yes.
frequently when talking about myself and my path. And I myself had kind of an interesting childhood, lots of obstacles, and lots of people either telling me I couldn't do this or that,
Yeah.
or just not believing in myself and having things get into my head. You know all about me having a couple different majors, dropping out of school, dropping back in. And you mentioned at one point feeling kind of lost. I definitely felt that way late teens, early 20s. And it wasn't until I just put my foot down and said, this is who I am, and I know this is who I am, and this is what I'm going to do, that I even started on the path to where I'm at today. But even through all that, it's taken a lot of resilience to get to this point. And I love that you not only said the word resilience, but you really understand what it takes to really be resilient and to keep trying to stay on your path and reinvent yourself when the going gets tough. And love that you use that term.
Absolutely. I think it's an important part of the human journey. If nothing else, it's a very important part of the human journey.
Totally agree. And one other thing that you talked about, I know I'm doing a lot of backtracking here, but another thing that you talked about was like your relationship with the company you worked for and the relationship you had with your staff. That really reminded me of the years that I spent being a manager at the company I was at for like 10 years. And that you talk about resilience and staying on the path you want to go on. It took me a while just to get that promotion, which I still to this day really cherish that I had that opportunity. And I really took the bull by the horns. And much like you, I really kind of not necessarily define the company or their mission or whatever, wasn't that much of a rebel, but I definitely put like my own spin on everything and led the team that I had as I saw fit and put my personality into it. And there were some people that I don't necessarily think really like cared for that. I was a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? I had it right on the tip of my brain here. I was just kind of different. There's a word I'm looking for. I can't spend the
Maybe
whole.
authentic, or authentic. Maybe you were authentic or unapologetically yourself.
Yeah, authentic and just march to the beat of my own drum is what I'm looking
Yes.
for. I'm
Yes.
glad that I figured that out without taking up a half hour. But yeah, I kind of just I marched to the beat of my own drum, and I had
Yes.
a lot of success in doing
Yes.
that. And
Yes.
that those were experiences that made me learn what I was really about and what my talents really were. And I feel there's so many like even though it's not the same exact path, I feel like there's a lot of similarities here. And it's very inspiring for me to hear that as I'm building up my show and thinking about the next steps in my life and career, to hear somebody who's like super successful kind of having the same kind of experiences and path and even using one of my very favorite words to describe their path. So I just wanted to note that like I'm blown away by the similarities. I don't know where that takes us in the conversation, but I really appreciate the similarities. So I also so you wound up transitioning out of the corporate world and into your own business. What were the things that you learned as you made that transition? What were the growing pains? What were the victories? What did you learn from that?
I learned a lot, Mark, because starting your own business, I think that a lot of people dilute what it really, really does take, to actually not just start the business, but maintain it, pursue it, and carry it forward. It really takes a lot of courage, a lot of energy, a lot of tenacity, a lot of focus, and also giving up a lot of stuff along the way. When all of my friends were out, partying, I was focused on building this business. I had to give up a lot of things. I had to, at the same time, Marc, I also went into this really deep, call it a spiritual journey. It was really me stepping inside of myself and understanding, who am I? What can I be? What can I become? What is my potential? And that in itself is an entire journey. So you've got this business that you're running, and then you've got this business of trying to figure out who you are. And what I was doing in parallel was unlearning everything that I learned, so that I can actually reframe who it is that I am and what it is that I came here to do. And through that first 7 years of that software company, there were a lot of trials and tribulations and a lot of failures. There were a lot of wins. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of sacrifice. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of the unknown. Like, I was also learning about the industry at the same time. It was just such a big learning curve, if you will. But in saying that, what I got from that experience is a lot of feedback. I rely on a feedback loop. That for me is the most important part of my business. And what it does is that it sets the stage for the next phase of your journey. Because when you can get feedback, it's not about getting feedback from your failures and your wins. Forget that. It's by understanding through trial and tribulation, through repetitive actions, what works and what doesn't work. So when you look at it from that standpoint, then suddenly you're starting to build your internal inventory that is genuinely made up of your knowledge, wisdom, and skill set, and wisdom being the key word. And when I then transitioned into my coaching business, I did say before, it wasn't just reading 3 Kindle books and suddenly I'm a coach. I never wanted to be that type of coach, because I could see there were too many shysters on in the digital space. I could see that all of these people were promoting this idea that you just need to read 3 books and then become a coach, charge premium pricing, and that's all that you need. And I never believed in that philosophy. I found that very, very scary, to be perfectly frank. And so the other thing is that I did invest in those type of coaches before I started my coaching business, because I thought, well, maybe coaching is a different way of being. So I invested $30,000 in coaches in that 3-year block. And I'm like, these people have no idea about infrastructure. They have no idea how to build systems. They have no framework. None of their work is tried and tested. And I don't want to be like that. I want to be everything that they're not, because I actually know how to do that. So I took my time and I was like, no, I'm going to build a system. I want my coaching business to be 100% outcome driven. And not only that, but I'm also going to incorporate 2 aspects to my business. One is the implementation, which I call the masculine power system. We have to implement. Nothing will happen if we don't implement. So that's number one. The other side of it is the embodiment of becoming that person that you've just invested in. All that implementation means, I'm doing that because I want to become a coach or a consultant. Well, now you've got to embody that version of yourself. You have to self-actualize your truest core potential. And that is a work in progress. We have to work on that every single day. It's not just writing 5 affirmations and hoping that things will happen. Forget about all of that stuff. That is just complete and utter nonsense. We really need to understand how to merge those 2 systems together. Everything in life, everything that is mechanical has a positive and a negative, masculine and a feminine. We need to understand this. Very important. And by understanding and incorporating the feminine system, what it allowed me to do is to introduce this notion of growth. Because if we're not growing, we are not creating that next version of us. We're just stuck, and we're stuck in a position hoping for something to change, but it never does. So this is why I'm passionate about merging these two systems together, because one, you're implementing and learning, therefore you're upgrading your knowledge base. And the other side is embodying that version of you, so that you go out into the world as that individual, not as the person that you were before you started working with me. When you finish that implementation, now you've got to become that. And that's a different, it requires a mind shift to be able to show up as that person, because then you are showing up as unapologetically yourself. You are ready to be seen. You are ready to be heard. You are ready to start the conversation with your target audience, because you understand the language that's wrapped around what it is that you do. So all of this, requires, and I'm sharing this with you because I want to just share with people that it's not just about, oh, I'm just going to become an entrepreneur. The commitment and dedication, the things that you have to give up, is so critical. People don't have patience. I've mastered patience. In that time frame, when I left my software company to where I am today, I have mastered patience. That is one of my critical traits. I'm not afraid of what my competitors are doing. They can go and knock themselves out. I'm the tortoise in the race. I'm not the hare. That's where I want to stay, because for me, growth is everything. So as I'm standing back and looking at all of these guru millennials supposedly making 7 figures per month, I'm standing back and saying that, no, I'm not, I don't need everyone to know about my personal business and my business. I'm showing up in front of my target audience, and I'm going to start a completely different dialogue, because I'm going to challenge those paradigms. And when I can challenge those paradigms and show people a different way, then I can start a mature conversation, and I can show people the way. I can give people ecstatic brand experiences. And this for me is vitally important. That takes time. That takes patience. That takes resilience. It takes tenacity. And you have to look at that as a feedback loop. So I'm getting all the feedback loop, even from my competitors, and I'm using that and leveraging that to my advantage. So for me, in starting your own business, it's not just about reading 3 Kindle books and hoping for the best. That's hope-based entrepreneurship. I'm interested in strategic and deliberate entrepreneurship. That's my absolute passion.
Your answer was loaded with really good stuff, and I hope that I can touch on everything. I'm probably not, but I totally agree with you as far as like the tortoise approach. I've had that approach with my show, and I don't even have a sponsor. I've never made anything off of this show. But what I've gotten in return has been very valuable to me. And I'm
Yes.
following my own path, my own timeline, because life gets in the way a little bit too. So I'm following my own path, and I'm not getting caught up in what other podcasters are doing, what other
No.
entrepreneurs are doing. I'm focused on my path and my goals and what I need to do. Now,
Yes.
another thing that you said about, as far as you not necessarily just wanting to take any shortcuts and not wanting to just be somebody that people come to and you make your money, like you want to make an impact. And
Yes.
it's very important, and I learned this through my own experiences, very important when you're trying to get coached or consulted in any way to make as good of a decision on who you pick as possible. And I learned this when I first left my company in 10 years. I wanted to get coached on resume, interviewing, and the whole job search thing. I plucked somebody out in the area that I lived in. They sounded really good, and it couldn't have been less of a match. They weren't really engaged with what I was trying to do or what my goals were. They could barely keep track of anything that we did. They would be like late for appointments, and it was just a terrible match. It wasn't a total waste of money, but it was a pretty good waste of money. And
Yeah,
because of that experience, that is the reason why I haven't really taken the leap to actually get consulted on how to get like more sponsorship. Although I think I have found one or two people to team up with, but I guess the moral of the story is I'm going on my own timeline because I want to make the best decision that I can for the business that I'm trying to grow. And
absolutely.
you don't necessarily have to go quite as slow as I've been. I feel like I need to kind of make some of these decisions now that my life is the way it is. But there is nothing wrong with taking the tortoise approach.
I agree. I agree. You're speaking to the converted, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, and same here. So I didn't really tell all the details on my story, but if you trust what I tell you on this show, just trust the fact that you should trust your gut on those
Yeah.
decisions. It's a very personal thing when you're hiring somebody to coach you, consult you, and
Yes.
it's not just something that's affiliated with a corporation and you're
Yes.
talking about a business that you want to grow. It's you. It's very personal, and
Mhm,
you gotta make the right decision by you,
mhm.
and
Yep.
not be consumed by making money or other things or keeping up with other people. It's gotta be on your time and in your best interest.
100%.
And I will 100% go into the next topic, which is personal branding. So you're very much in touch with your authentic self, and I love that. And I know you're going to give me a good answer, and you're going to know who and what. Like, I guess I should kind of like reframe that because I'm going on a weird tangent, I think. But but I guess what I want to ask is when you started your personal branding company, did you know who you wanted to help? Was it just entrepreneurs? Was it beyond that? Who did you want to reach?
That's a great question, Mark, because I think this will help a lot of people as well. When I first started, I thought that I wanted to help entrepreneurs, people that are in business, they're starting their some type of business, whether it's a coaching business, consulting business, whatever it may be. I thought I could help people really define their brands. This is where your feedback loop comes in, because over the years, I went through a lot of trials and tribulations, and I was trying, I sort of had my hands everywhere, but I'd never really defined, you could call it your niche, you can call it your industry. And because I thought I could help basically anybody. And over the years, I realized the only people I only want to help are industry experts. And I really nailed it down to those two words, because when people start working with me and I'm working on their personal brand, the personal brand is not just about colors and fonts, visuals, what your website looks like, etc., because you can't do anything with that. That is not monetizable. That looks pretty, it looks beautiful, it'll look great, but if it can't be commercialized, you've got a deep problem. So for me, it was taking it much, much deeper than that. I built an entire software around my personal branding methodology. It is a SaaS platform. And what it essentially does is that it unpacks all of your attributes out of you based on your natural state of being. That's the step one. That's the most important part that I can do. And then it unpacks your knowledge, wisdom, and skill set. So then I need to know, what does your natural state of being actually look like? What I realized based on just that exercise alone is that a lot of people that wanted my help were people that actually wanted to be famous. They didn't really have the substance to solve a complex problem. Now, just if I look at myself as an individual, I'm very mathematical. I'm a very systems orientated person. I'm a results-driven individual. I passionately believe that if we are going to solve a problem, you must support that with your background. So people that come to me and say, I want to be an Instagram influencer, how can I help you if you've read 3 Kindle books and your dream is to be famous? Don't you think that you might be looking for a Hollywood agent versus a Mary Henderson? Do you see the difference? So when I transitioned to industry experts, those people met my criteria, which is, do you have 10,000 hours minimum dedicated to your area of specialization? And what that did for me is that it attracted the right people, mature people who are genuinely industry experts. I work with a lot of PhDs. I work with a lot of people who have published white paper science journals. I work with doctors who are food scientists. I've worked with, fitness scientists. I've worked with so many scientists, it's not funny. And these are the people that genuinely can solve a complex problem. What they can't do is market themselves. What they can't do is organize their life experience into a methodology, into a premium signature program that they can sell at premium pricing. And most of my clients, they sell their solutions for $20, $50, $100,000. We're not selling $99 courses. These genuinely are, programs. So when I transitioned into understanding who it is that I only want to work with, what it did is that cut out the noise in my life and in my business. And now it meant that I could now start working with the people that I really want to work with, super smart people who I love and respect. And also they are ready to invest in themselves. So money never becomes a conversation starter for me and my clients. They already know that when they invest with me, it's not going to be $99. They already know that. So it's never about the money. It's always about the outcome. What does the outcome look like? And this is why I'm so passionate about that idea of creating solutions that are 100% outcome driven, not just deliverables. It has to be tangible outcomes. So when we're looking at our target audience, a lot of it is trial and tribulation. It's based on a feedback loop. And I love that. I think it's very important to have that. There's no mistake. There's no right or wrong. It's just understanding what it is that you can do, what problem can you solve, and who needs that problem in the marketplace, and what are they prepared to spend?
I feel like your vision is tapping into something that I think I've been doing myself. And I think you put all of that so nicely, because I know for me, I've had some really amazing guests on this show, but I've also had guests that didn't make the cut and never got on the show for one reason or another. And I think since I made certain decisions in my approach in order to get better people and lessen the outcome of somebody not being on my show and wasting the time of doing the pre-interview and all that stuff,
Yeah.
I made those changes to put myself in a position where that the percentage of success went way up, and the percentage of me walking away and not understanding why these, XYZ person wanted to be on my show or what they were doing, it totally filtered that out. And I think what you said there when the light bulb went off and what you needed to do to kind of filter out that person who just wants to be famous versus the
Yes.
person that can bring real value. And
Yes.
I've had a lot of people from the past few years bring a ton of value, and those people made it onto the show. But oh, there were so many that I just, if you're watching the video, I just hit my head like, what am I doing? So,
I know, a
it,
lot of noise, Mark. You know,
yeah.
we've got to get rid of the noise. That's the problem.
And I feel like in this season, season 3, 2022, I've managed to filter out a lot of that noise. And I
Right.
think it just is the
Amazing.
learning experience. It's the learning
Yes.
curve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. That's
And
the key, isn't it?
that's the key. And I think as you go along and you learn more about what makes you you and what makes
Yes.
your project, your business, whatever it
Absolutely.
is, what
Yes.
what you are, I think that's how you filter out that noise. And if
Yes.
you listen to yourself and you listen to what's going on, you can make those adjustments and you can see better results.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
your story is a great example. And I love, like, there's a lot of parallels, even though we're doing two completely different things. There's a lot of parallels, and I love just that really energizes me when I stop the recording and look back because I just did another episode before you and kind of had the same experience. Like, this person's doing something completely different from what I'm doing in a lot of ways, and yet we're so much alike. So there's a
I love it.
lot to be learned, and that's why I do what I do because it not only helps me to learn, but it also helps me to understand that we're a lot more similar, and there's a lot more people out there that are
Yes.
similar and want authenticity and want
Mhm.
all these things that I want and I'm going for and aspiring for. And it's not all just shallow Instagram influencer mindset.
No,
So
it's not. You're absolutely right.
I totally appreciate that. And I frankly don't know where exactly that whole spiel was going, but so what does the future look like? Like, what's your next step with coaching? Or do you have a vision for another business? Are you gonna grow this business even more? What does the future look like?
I think, Mark, you know, for me, it's now like scale massively because I've realized that what I do is so specialized and so beautiful. And I say that with my hand on my heart. I truly, it's not coming from a place of ego. It really is coming from a place of complete love, knowing that I can absolutely solve a problem. One of the things that I see a lot of, and this is where I've especially this week, I've been working on some amazing content. And I even say this to my clients all the time. There's this massive movement, you know, in the world, especially you see it on Facebook, where there's all these coaches targeting females. So there's this push to coach women to self-realize their potential. Now, absolutely love empowering women. In fact, my group coaching, which is my boot camp, which is now about to become a 12-month mastermind, just coincidentally, they happen to all be women, all very, very come from senior backgrounds, and they're very smart, mature women, just incredible. But what I see in that movement of just targeting females is that it's all very much hype based. And it's always the coach talking about how rich she is, how much money she's made, how much her life has changed. And the content is not substantial enough for women to truly self-actualize their potential. Because you can talk about this feminine movement as much as you like, but if we're going to just focus on the hype and believing that we have potential and the law of attraction and manifestation and all this stuff, what happens is that the women get hyped up and they stay maybe for 12 months, even 2 years with that one coach, but they never actually move. So they're hyped up. And what is the problem? The problem is that most of those coaches don't understand the masculine system, which is implementation. So if I'm going to be hyped up in this feminine group, what happens is that I'm hyped, but I'm not moving toward my goal, because you need structure, you need systems in place in order to implement. I need my clients to see what they do every step of the way. That's true transformation. At the same time, they're self-actualizing. So for me, it's taking my system to a much bigger scale, and also being okay to now start talking about it. I've been a little bit humble in the background. I've had amazing clients. My business has done exceptionally well, but I just feel that I'm going to now really, make a lot more noise, because I want to empower women from that standpoint. I want women to start their business and end it with a real business, all of the moving parts in place, ready for monetization, and at the same time, self-actualize their true potential. Those two systems need to merge together in order for people to invest in a coach and to get an outcome at the end of it. For me, it's taking that to a much bigger scale and to almost challenge a lot of the nonsense that's out there. And I think that a lot of women are ready for this. They've gone through the kumbaya stage, and now they're like, okay, I'm still in the same place. I haven't moved. I need something more. And hopefully, the right women will resonate with what I stand for and my perspective on entrepreneurship.
I love your perspective and I love your mission. And I hate like kind of patting myself on the back or whatever, but I know I've had a lot of female entrepreneurs on this show. And that's something that I actually I feel really proud of, but I feel really fortunate as well to be able to put that out there.
Yeah,
And this has
amazing.
been this has been like a real melting pot of a show in general, which was one of the goals of mine, was to not just have, white guys, American white guys or whatever. I wanted it to just be the best people on the
Yeah,
show. And whether you're a woman, a guy, whatever, wherever you're from, and I just wanted it to be a real melting pot. But I'm very proud and have had some really great conversations with female entrepreneurs, and I don't think that they get quite enough of a spotlight. And I think it's really great that that's one of your missions. And I think you
yes,
need people like you out there to keep pushing and to have that passion and to keep that going and keep inspiring, because there's a lot of really smart women out there who are doing
yes,
really good things. And it's
exactly.
it's been great for me to have people like you on this show and just be blown away by the drive and the intelligence. And I'm really happy to be putting that out there and to have that be something that I've been able to accomplish with this show. And that's a little bit of a pat on my own back. I guess you can
Amazing.
you and everybody else can be a judge on whether I deserve that or not. But that's definitely been a goal of mine. So,
Awesome.
with that being said, I think we're running out of time here. I don't want to keep you for 2 or 3 hours. So, let's talk a little bit. Speaking of being an entrepreneur and doing great things, I'll have you tell everybody how they can find you and how they can work with you and how they can become better with their personal branding.
Absolutely. Please feel free to email me, mary@maryhendersoncoaching.com. You can check out my website, maryhendersoncoaching.com. You can get me on LinkedIn at Mary Henderson Coaching with a pink circle around my face. You can connect with me on Facebook, Mary Henderson Coaching, and also on Instagram, Mary Henderson Coaching.
All right. Wow, you did that very succinctly. So,
Yeah, it was very straightforward. Another thing is, Mark, that I might just mention that I also do offer a free 45-minute coaching call with me where I do a very detailed gap assessment, and it's all for free. What it will do is, and it's not a sales call, it is a genuine coaching call. It just shows people where their gaps are, not just on the masculine, all the moving parts, but also in the feminine system as well. It's very powerful. I've had so many people take that call, and it's just the sheer energy that comes out of those calls is just mind-blowing. But what it does, it actually shows people the truth. This is your current situation, and this is what you need to focus on. And then if people want to talk to me about how they can work with me, we can talk about that in the call. But it is a gap assessment, and it is for free. So I encourage everyone that's ready to move down this direction and literally turn their knowledge, wisdom, and skill set into a 6-figure, 7-figure coaching business. This is the greatest starting point. Everyone that's worked with me started here, and you can get access to that at maryhendersoncoaching.com/apply, APPLY.
well, Mary, I have no doubt that if anybody signs up and consults and is under your tutelage, that and if they're serious, they will get good results. I mean,
Thank you, Mark.
I love the energy, I love the authenticity, and you were a real pleasure to talk to.
Thank
And
you.
I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with little old me. So,
Thank you, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure.
well, thank you very much for being here on Mark My Words. Again, this was Mary Henderson. She is a personal branding and online business specialist. Go check her out. And I can't wait to see what's next in your story and your own personal branding. So I will definitely be following that. And thank you, everybody, for listening. I'm Mark Schmidt. This again was Mary Henderson. And this was Mark My Words. Have a great day. Thanks again for taking time out of your busy day to listen to Mark My Words. If you would like to connect with me beyond the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt, where I will be talking about entrepreneurship, careers, and anything else that is on my mind. You can also connect with me on Twitter and Instagram at Nimrod1979 and Nimrod79 respectively. This podcast also has a page on Instagram at Mark My Words. And finally, if you want to leave me a voicemail or check out what I'm up to with the podcast, come find me at podpage.com/mark-my-words. Thanks again for listening, and I'll be back with a new episode soon. Bye for now.